The Baltimore Ravens, they officially play football today. We have made it. And John Harbaugh hinted at what could be a pretty substantial preseason change for the team. We talk about that, players to watch in week one of the preseason against the Colts, plus some breakout players to keep an eye on. All that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day, free and available on all podcasting platforms, including a video form on YouTube where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday. Plus, we go live after every single Ravens game. We also go live after every single piece of Ravens big news. And we have the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, which is Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks to all the everydayers out there, the first-time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have made it. The long wait is over. We are going to see Ravens football tonight. The Colts are in town. And we got some preseason action week one, here to break everything down about that, as well as some John Harbaugh comments that could hint at a pretty big preseason change for the Ravens. It is Sam Njoku of the Ravens Talk podcast, and of course of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam on that with myself and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. And Sam, we're going to be busy tonight. You know, the Ravens are going to play, and then we kind of have an order of operations for how it's going to happen with the Squad Show on game days. You know, it's going to be the first one for us, but I'll let you take it away in terms of what squad shows will become on game days and explain a little about that.
Get used to my face. Get used to seeing my face, guys, because we're on today. Tonight, obviously, we'll be on the Ravens Squad Show, but you get to see me today and obviously tonight. So we'll have the Ravens Squad Show after the Ravens game. Obviously, you will have Kevin doing his post-game show for you guys. And then immediately after that, we'll hop on with us. Myself, Q, talking Ravens football, post-game, talking all things Ravens. Hopefully, even though it's a preseason, a Ravens victory to get things started with the regular season.
Yeah, let's start another, 24-game preseason win streak.
Let's
and
do it.
All the controversy that comes with that. So, yeah, we will be – there's going to be a lot of Ravens content on Locked On Ravens for game days. I'm really excited about this. During the regular season, we'll have morning episodes of just preview games for the regular season. I'll record those for Sunday bonus episodes. Preseason, we're not going to do that because, you know, this one happens during the week. So, you know, to have this is the episode essentially. So what we have now, though, is a lot of content, not only after games, but also during games. This is the official announcement. It's something I've been hinting at. I'm going to do during games this season, starting tonight, watch-alongs. Going to be Locked On Ravens watch-alongs. I'm excited for it. So you can tap in with me during the games. We'll instantly react to every single play, the goods, the bads, the elation, the heartbreaks, and you can follow along in the chat. You know, I'm going to be engaging with the chat as we do, obviously, with post-games lives and the Squad Show as well. So it's preseason for everybody, myself included. Under the first one, maybe we'll have a hiccup or two, and if you want to see me maybe embarrass myself, maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. Nothing ever goes perfect the first time. So preseason, it's good for everybody to get things situated, but I'm really pumped up to do that. So we'll have the full game watch along, and then right from there we will go into the post game instant reaction. So literally a couple minutes after the game ends, I'm going to end the watch along, go right into my post game thoughts, and then after that is over, we're going to jump into the Squad Show with Sam, Q, and I. So if you like Ravens coverage, you're going to get a lot of it on game days over here on Locked On Ravens. So really excited for that. But Sam,
Yes.
Let's talk about the preseason a little bit. John Harbaugh, he, after joint practice with the Colts, hinted at a change. Now, he didn't say it's going to happen. I want to make that clear. It's something that he said they're going to essentially evaluate. So he said, first of all, that the Ravens will not be playing their big guys in this game tonight. And that shouldn't necessarily shock anybody, because the Ravens really haven't done that ever since J.K. Dobbins tore his knee up. Literally, it was one drive for them. And Harbaugh said that, yeah, those guys aren't going to play this week, but they're going to take it really just on a game-by-game basis, he said, next week, which is a decently substantial shift from what that has been. So I know, Sam, there's a lot of conversation about whether the Ravens should or should not play their starters for any amount of time on the preseason, because when Dobbins got injured, it was one drive. They tried to get a couple in, and you're like, okay, can they get a couple of snaps away with these guys and not have anything happen? And no, of course it did. So for you, would you like to see Lamar Jackson in company, or even if it's not Lamar Jackson, some of the Ravens starter players, higher up starter players play in the preseason at all, or you just want to keep them on ice until week 1?
I'm admittedly terrified of the notion of the Ravens playing their starters in the preseason. You mentioned the J.K. Dobbins injury. That is the one that sticks in my mind. I'm sure it sticks in the mind of those guys over in the facility about what that can mean for this team. But scared money don't make money, okay? And got to overcome your fears. The Ravens have, in my opinion, started slow last year. You know, they gave up games that we probably think they should have won. Who knows? Maybe if they played the stars in the preseason last year, they get the victory against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1 and use that momentum to carry themselves throughout the season. We don't know, but I could see maybe a hint of that being the reason why the Ravens may consider it in the future. Again, I am terrified of the notion. I would hate for an injury derail the season before the season even starts. That would be horrible, but injuries can happen in practice. They can happen at your home. We've seen it with Sergio Kendall. You know, who knows? These things happen. So I get the notion. I actually like the idea of potentially changing things up, because the Ravens know that whatever they did the previous seasons hasn't really worked in their favor. Again, I'm still scared. I will not lose any sleep if the Ravens decide not to play their starters, but it's interesting that the Ravens are, at least based on the comments we got from Harbaugh, tinkering with the idea of maybe playing a starter or two that they normally wouldn't.
And so I've pulled up the stats. So 2021 was the JK injury, right? I believe. Yep. So JK gets injured in 2021. The Ravens obviously started 0-2 last season, right? It was a slow start for them. They actually went 2-0 in 2023. They beat the Texans and the Bengals, and then they lost to Gardner Minshew in week 3. We don't talk about that one. They beat the Jets in week 1 of 2022, and then they lost to Miami. We also don't talk about that game and how that went in the fourth quarter. Yeah, pretty devastating. They lost to the Raiders in overtime during the 2021 regular season, but that was like they had to bring in an entirely new running back room. That whole week just felt like a dream. Like it didn't even exist because, maybe you need to stop going to these early games.
I'm not going to more games. I'm done.
You know, maybe there's a correlation here, Sam. I don't know. We might have to figure something out with that, but
maybe.
I think that for the Ravens, it is good, or it would be good to have the starters play a little bit. Now, again, that might not include Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry or some of those like top, like your best player guys. But I think it would benefit like Nate Wiggins going out there and playing some snaps, or maybe a guy like Nnamdi Madubuike for a drive or two or a quarter. I remember saying, like, when they used to have the 4 preseason games, it was the starters would play like half of the first quarter in the first game, a full quarter in the second game, a half in the third game. That was like the tune-up, and then they'd play not at all in the fourth game. I wouldn't be opposed for that to happen again. And the exact wording that Harbaugh used was that we will take the next game as we go. So I don't know if that's just like that Harbaugh has to feel and the coaching staff has to feel good enough about where they are. Maybe the fact that the Ravens have 2 joint practices, the one with the Colts and the one coming up against the Commanders, is that enough for the starters in terms of actual reps to be able to feel good enough to not play them? You know, but it is, and not every team operates that way. You know, not every team says, hey, we're not playing any starters at all in the preseason. The Ravens, I think, take a very conservative approach when it comes to that. And, you know, I'm okay with it. Like, it essentially just depends on what do you want to have. Do you want to have a little more rust, but guarantee that guys aren't going to get injured in the games? Or do you want to maybe have them shake a little off, but what if they're playing like a second string or third string defense because that team isn't playing their starters? Is that worth it as opposed to joint practices where you're going one-on-one? So I don't know what this is going to entail, but who's the most high profile player? If it's not Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry or Roquan or Kyle Hamilton, who's the most high profile player? Is it like a Zay? Is it like maybe Mark Andrews? Like who would it be to you?
I think it would be the offensive lineman. I would love to give Voorhees and Falele getting as much reps as possible getting as many situations as possible to get their minds right. Maybe a rookie that you wouldn't normally think would play that's going to start like a Malachi Starks, maybe get some extra time. But other than that, I don't know. Like you mentioned it, they're going to be playing the second and third stringers, in most of these contests. Iron sharpens iron. Not much iron out there to speak of. So I think the joint practices give them more opportunities. But interestingly enough, if the Ravens do decide to play their starters in this preseason stretch, then if they get to week 18 and they're the 1 seed, maybe they don't rest their starters. Maybe they get themselves ready for a playoff push, something that they really haven't done in the past. So very interesting to see where the Ravens go with this. But yeah, I don't know if I risk playing my guys in the season that has to go right. I'm holding my breath after every practice that I don't hear news that a player is injured. So my anxiety will be at an all-time high, but I get the notion. Let's ramp things up. Let's get these guys ready for the regular season, but maybe not bring your best guys out there. But Falele and Voorhees are two guys. Get as many reps as possible.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked if those guys even played a little tonight. Like, in terms of like the fact that Harbaugh was asked, like the actual question, it was, is it the usual no quarterback Lamar Jackson, no running back Derrick Henry for the top guys? So if it's top guys, Falele and Voorhees, those are guys that I do think could use. So, I'd expect to see them. I'd at least assume for a couple, but then you kind of, is it all 3 games you see them? Like if a guy like Falele pretty clearly has won that job. So like, do you play Falele for all 3 preseason games for a little bit, or is it just this game and then he rests for the next 2 games? So there's all different conversations. I probably wouldn't, like if I had to predict, I'd probably say the Ravens won't play a lot of these guys. I think Harbaugh's, we know John Harbaugh can, with the media can be interesting in terms of what he means with his answers at times. So if I had to predict, I would probably say the Ravens don't play any of those guys. So if you're on that side of it, then congratulations. I think that's probably where it's headed. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's like for a drive. And we see, again, maybe not Lamar, but a couple of those other guys. So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll dive into some players to watch who actually will be on the field for the Ravens against the Colts in week 1 of the preseason. A lot to dive into there. Stay tuned. A lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while all your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. And look, it's been a tough year for the Orioles. This is Locked On Ravens, so naturally I am an Orioles guy, and they sold at the trade deadline. Their World Series odds right now over on FanDuel are plus 100,000. So, hey, maybe you're feeling spicy. You want to get in on that action over on FanDuel. It's right there for you. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with Sam Njoku, talking Ravens football. Pumped to have the Locked On Ravens watch along and just game day experience that we're going to bring you here. It used to just be last year. We had the preview episode that came out in the morning and then the post game show, and that was it. And that was great. But now we have added on essentially a full day of Ravens content, which I'm so excited about. Once this background gets situated, I'm still rocking with the virtual. It looks like, again, I'm ascending with my white outline, so we're getting the background right. The mic is working, revamping it for that, which, again, I can't wait for. But let's talk a little bit about the guys, Sam, who are going to be on the field for the Ravens in this preseason game. There are a lot of guys I'm excited for. Do you have any just off the top before I kind of go into a couple that I'm excited about? Do you have anybody that you're going to have your eye on specifically?
Malachi Starks. I think that's number 1 on my list. Haven't seen that man play since college. I'm ready to see this man on an NFL field. So I'm super pumped to see Malachi. I don't think he plays much. There's a lot of other safeties out there. I think Sanusi Kane, I've heard great things about him. Will Braid, there'll be opportunities for these guys who I think will see some action this season as a safety, not just special teams. So they may want to get them as much looks as possible. But considering this is Malachi Starks' first game in action as an NFL pro, even though it's the preseason, We assume he's going to be the starter next to Kyle Hamilton. The Ravens need to get as much reps in him as possible. So very excited to see Malachi Starks. I will also love to see Tez Walker. Heard great things about Tez Walker. Q's guy, TJ Tampa. Kadri Smile loves TJ Tampa. Want to see him out there, see how he does in the boundary. Could he be another, piece, maybe spelling for Jaire Alexander in certain instances? Great player, in my opinion, this year upcoming. We'll see, but those are my 3 top guys.
And I think when you look at it, the Ravens will be facing Anthony Richardson. He's going to start in this game. Shane Steichen announced that yesterday after the joint practice. Steichen said that Richardson will see about a quarter and a half of action, and then Daniel Jones is expected to play about half a quarter. Now, the Colts are apparently not going to play some of their key starters, so I'm not sure that he'll be throwing to Michael Pittman and A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell had a day, by the way, against the Ravens secondary. I mean, definitely a mixed bag, I'd say, during joint practice, Sam. That kind of was the end result there. The Colts, they have talent for sure. I mean, they have a good defensive line. They're not as talented as the Ravens are in terms of their roster, but they have some playmakers. I'm really excited to see Keaton Mitchell. We had Ken McCusick on the show, who's been out at training camp. He's been doing a great job. We had him on for Tuesday's show, and he said that Keaton Mitchell has been the single best player in camp for the Ravens, which is obviously very high praise. And Ken obviously knows what he is talking about. He puts in a lot of work, and his evaluations are sound. And so when you look at Keaton, how he feels, how he has said he feels, how he has looked, you see it in the stadium practice, some of the clips, and of course with what you hear, Keaton is a guy, plus Tez Walker, like those have kind of been the 2 camp darlings for the Ravens. It's felt like on offense for this training camp, getting them in action. Is Tez Walker another Jeremy Butler or Jordan Lasley, Jaleel Scott? I think he's not. I think that he has the potential with his athleticism, contested catchability, the speed that he brings to the table. Like, I think that it's not just another flash in the pan like a James Prochet or some of that. I think the Ravens genuinely need his skill set. He and DeAndre Hopkins, both of them, we're probably not seeing D-Hop in this game, but no. you look at Tez, he can capture an opportunity, and there is still a real shot, in my opinion, that if everything goes right for Tez, he can overtake DeAndre for that number 3 spot by the time the season ends if he flashes enough and shows enough. Probably a good preseason showing, and then whether he just earns more reps or the whole 9 there. I think that Tez and Keaton are 2 guys that I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, I think I did watch the show. I heard Ken's comments about Keaton, and I've heard through various sources that Keaton has had an excellent camp, that burst is back. And some fans may forget that 2 years ago, that boy was moving. I mean, he was a speedster to complement what they have with Gus Edwards. I mean, it was phenomenal to watch. So if he could even be, I won't say half, but 75% of what he was that year, they're in good hands. But it looks like he's back to 100%, which is great to hear. I'm nervous about even playing Keaton Mitchell in this game. That's the type of feeling I'm having with him. Another guy, David Ojabo. I've heard some good things about David Ojabo. Not so much about Adisa Isaac, but David Ojabo, I've seen him on some one-on-one drills. He's looked phenomenal. You can tell he's fighting for a playoff spot. So I'm sure he'll get a lot of action in this contest. So we'll see. This is game 1 of a 3-game tryout, essentially, for David Ojabo and Adisa Isaac, 2 guys who look to be fringe players looking to fight for that spot. So very interested to see what David Ojabo can do. You mentioned Keaton Mitchell. LaJohntay Wester, I want to see what he does as a returner. Maybe he'll get some receiver action, but let's see what the special teams unit can do. Not much in the return game for a while for the Ravens. So it'll be nice to see if they can get some impact players on that side of the ball.
It's taken us around 20 minutes to get to this name, but of course, I think this is probably the lead guy that everybody is excited to see. Mike Green. I hope I'm doing Q proud with all my Mike Greens, but I mean, this is the guy that I'm pumped. Like, obviously Malachi as well. You talked about him, Sam, and I can't wait to see him. But there's just something about Mike Green in terms of I've said it, the AFC North, everyone has their guy. The Bengals with Trey Hendrickson, the Steelers with TJ Watt, the Browns with Myles Garrett. I'm not saying Mike Green is there at this moment in time on August 7th. But man, I think that he's the best shot the Ravens have had at the next great pass rusher to follow up a guy like Terrell Suggs in a long time. In a long time. And to me, it's everything. It's his speed to power. It's the bend. I mean, the bend has been on display over the past couple of days at the stadium practice against the Colts. You saw the highlights of him lighting up guys on kick returns and dominating during 2 minutes. He has a pass rush plan. It's not like he's throwing out moves just to throw them out. He understands what he needs to do. He essentially, I think, could even be matchup proof with how smart he is, both as a football player and obviously as a person. Mike Green's a very smart guy. And I think that with how he understands the game, like him and Malaki are both, I think, pretty cerebral when it comes to just understanding how to play football. And that's why the Ravens drafted him, right? They need guys that are NFL ready. They need guys that understand how to really make impacts at a very high level instead of trying to tap into potential. They still have sky high potential. That's kind of that conversation. Oh, this guy has a high floor, meaning he's already reached this. No. These guys still have sky high potential. But Mike Green, Sam, I mean, how excited are you to see him? Because my excitement is just through the roof.
I'm very excited. And spoiler alert, Mike Green's going to be a good football player. I mean, I don't need to see any preseason action to know it. We've seen him on display in training camp. All the skill sets that you require to be a dominant pass rusher, he has it. You know, you mentioned it, his tool belt, his wheelhouse of moves are superb, especially for a rookie. So those are the things you want to see from a pass rusher. He has it. He's going to be great. It's only a matter of how great is he going to be coming out his rookie season. We'll get to see it today. Tonight we're going to find out how great Mike Green is. I think a lot of fans who haven't had a chance to see him are going to be very surprised about how talented he is. We haven't seen a guy with his skill set since Terrell Suggs. I mean, I don't want to put him on a pedestal, too early, but he has the skills, guys. He has the skills. So it'll just be fun to see him put it together throughout his career, hopefully sooner rather than later. But yes, he is definitely the guy that everyone should be paying attention to. He's going to get a lot of opportunities in this contest, and he might be short. You might get 2 sacks, and the Ravens say, okay, let's go. No more game tape for the Bills heading into week 1. Let's get you out of there. But yeah, very excited for what he can do in this offense, this defense.
Yeah, and again, the Ravens aren't going to be running a ton of complex stuff here. They're not going to throw out their entire playbook offensively or defensively in the preseason. That's not what teams do. It's going to be a very vanilla type of game plan for these games, as it always is. But he's a very violent football player, the motor, and that was one of his weaknesses. People sometimes, maybe you're like a job, you're like, you get asked, what's your biggest weakness? You're like, oh, sometimes I work too hard. Or, sometimes, I'm too much of a go-getter. One of the things on Mike Green's scouting report was legitimately he has such a high motor, he tires himself out on the football field, and it impacts him negatively because he doesn't have any stamina left, any wind left. Like, that is how hard he plays. And that's the exact type of player the Ravens want and need on this defense. You kind of see it where Jaire comes in with his personality. You get these high motor, these are guys that play like Ravens. Play like a Raven is the big thing. They play like Ravens. And coming up, we'll keep talking about more players to watch, what to expect in week 1 against the Colts this preseason. Plus, Sam and I are going to put our stamp on one player that we believe in that maybe not a lot of people are talking about the way they should. So stay tuned. We got plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And one of my favorite features is the new Guillotine Leagues. They just dropped, and every week the lowest scoring team is eliminated and the last one standing wins. So whether you're all in on something new or you're just sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo's got you covered. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your lead together and to give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Sam Njoku here with you, talking Ravens football. Sam, let's keep diving in to these players. I have a couple of more I want to get into with you here. And the first one, I think the kicker battle, all eyes are going to be on Tyler Loop. It's not really a battle anymore. It's more like a kicker singularity with Tyler Loop being the only guy on the roster now with John Hoyland. So maybe not a battle, but still Tyler Loop still having some things to prove. Did really well at the joint practice with the Colts, went perfect from the field, which was great. Obviously, it just continues to be a step up in terms of the competition level, where stadium practice with the Ravens fans at M&T, joint practice in a competitive setting with the Colts. Now you get an actual preseason game. What are you looking for with Tyler Loop here? Is it just like, hey, make all your kicks, or do you want to see the leg or the technique? Like, is there anything specific, or are you just like, hey, man, go out there and make everything?
I would love for him to make everything. I'm not too concerned if he misses a kick, but I do want to see him in game action with the fans screaming. You know, you're going to have 60,000 plus Ravens fans screaming their heads off. You know, it's going to be an environment, to be sure. A lot of adrenaline. I think some of that adrenaline in the practice, stadium practice, maybe helped him get some extra air on that 60-yard kick that he had. So just calming down, understanding that, you know, every kick's different. Every day's a process. Just go out there and be the best you can be. If he misses wide left, obviously the talk will be crazy, but I think he's going to play very well. I'm not overly concerned with Tyler Loop. Go out there and get the job done. If you miss a kick, go out there again and make the next one.
Yep. Don't let the confidence get shot. Just go out there and, you know, tunnel vision. One play is one play. The next play is the next play. That's something Justin Tucker did really well, you know, and not that he like missed a ton of kicks up until last season, but he was a guy that, you know, even if he did miss a kick, he would bounce back in that way. I wish he did a little more last year, but you know, that was a guy. It is a shift going from the career Tucker had to Loop, and you know, you're just gonna have to go through the rookie pains if there are any. But like I keep saying, I'm sure I sound like a broken record. The Ravens didn't have great kicker play last year, so if Tyler Loop doesn't have a great season, like Tucker didn't have a great season, well, the Ravens were still a 2-point drop away and multiple miscues away, just a few, from getting to the AFC Championship game. So that's kind of where I am on that. A couple other guys, Charlie Kolar, I think is really intriguing to me, because I think, Sam, everybody talks about, oh man, Mark Andrews up for a big contract. I say likely, man, extension potentially, or man, what if there is a big year for Likely? Is he going to be able to stay in Baltimore? Are they going to have to choose? Charlie Kolar's fighting for a contract too, by the way, everybody. Charlie Kolar, he's a guy that's going to want a little bit of a pay raise and a pay bump. So I think he was one of the stars of joint practice on Tuesday. You know, you love to hear the things, and Lamar really complimented him in a big way, saying that he's getting up there with Mark and Isaiah. Like, that's the confidence that Lamar has in him. So I think Charlie Kolar, you mentioned LeJontay Wester. I also am curious to see some of those other, like Dayton Wade, for example. Like, he had a great preseason last year. I think the Ravens were a little lucky to get him back on a practice squad. I thought he was going to end up getting claimed somewhere. Although, if you remember, Darius Washington also got cut, and he was supposed to get claimed and he didn't. So, you know, maybe the Ravens get lucky again. But, you know, they have guys like Keith Kirkwood, Malik Cunningham, guys along those lines that potentially could make impacts. I'm not saying that they're going to be like game changers, but I think the Ravens wide receiver depth, like, they have guys. And it's not just like the top of the depth chart with Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman. It truly is top to bottom really deep.
Yeah, Dayton Wade is another guy along with LeJontay Wester that have looked good in training camp. Wester's had a couple of drops here and there, and that's something that was a factor in him dropping a little bit in the draft. But Dayton Wade had a great preseason last year. I think he's building upon that. It's going to be very tough to make this roster, obviously, with 3 studs in Hopkins, Bateman, and Flowers. But you got Tez Walker, you got Talon Wallace, and then who knows? You know, Wester obviously is going to make the team as a returner if he, you know, unless he, you know, drops the ball. But Dayton Wade's a guy who, if he has a great season, maybe not make this team, but he could make another team. You mentioned it. If he gets cut, I think this might be the season. If he does have a preseason reminiscent of last year, that could potentially get picked up by another team.
We also haven't talked about what I think is one of the more intriguing positional battles. And actually, this is something Q has talked about in terms of this position really impressing him, not necessarily the guys we're about to talk about, but just the depth. That's inside linebacker with Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan vying for that spot. Jay Kummel, I assume, is obviously going to be more of a special teams contributor for them this season. But, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Trenton Simpson's body transformation, how Teddy Buchanan came into training camp in his body transformation, or I guess it's not he's a rookie. So I guess his beginning NFL body, I guess, is if you want to call it that. But then you have other guys like Chandler Martin, undrafted guys who also were looking really good. Obviously, they're not competing for that spot next to Roquan or anything, but I think that Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan, that battle could be decided with these 3 preseason games. I don't think that, like, both of them, I feel like will have some level of a role this year, Sam, but you also have to kind of take into account and keep in mind that they are not married to keeping a second inside linebacker on the field next to Roquan. They can use dime packages, multiple DBs. It's not a requirement, especially when you have so many guys that can come up and play in the box or be that guy for them. But what do you want to see from Trenton Simpson? What would convince you that he's ready to take that year 3 leap that a lot of people expected last year?
Yeah, you got to show it. This is the time to show it. One of the reasons why I'm sure he went so hard to change his body is because he heard the rumblings about Teddy Buchanan, and Buchanan hasn't disappointed. I think Teddy Buchanan, I feel like he's built for the preseason. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of time, playing time this week and all the weeks heading up to the regular season. And he's the guy who's talented enough to beat out the 2s and the 3s and shine in those moments. So it's going to be up to Simpson to make sure that he's also making those big plays, shining in those moments, and doing all the things he has to do to stave off Buchanan, because it is a competition right now between Buchanan and Simpson. The Ravens would love for Simpson to be that guy because obviously he has the experience and he has the relationship with Roquan Smith. But again, it's crazier things have happened. We've seen it before. If Teddy Buchanan has a great preseason, he could be the guy playing opposite Roquan Smith on Sunday. But to your point, I think that both of these guys will have a role in this defense this season.
It is breakout player time. This is going to be a player that Sam and I believe so. And I've saved mine. I haven't mentioned it. Maybe I don't know if I mentioned yours or not, Sam. I apologize if I did. But we are going to do one player that we believe in that maybe not a lot of people are talking about right now, or they're not getting some of the hype heading into some of these preseason games like we have talked about with other guys. So I'll kick it off to you first, Sam. Who is your preseason breakout player that you are putting your stamp on ahead of Thursday night's action?
I mentioned him already, but I mentioned him again, Tez Walker. I think I've heard enough good things about Tez Walker and the shift. I mean, he had one catch that was a touchdown last year, but from all the things I've heard, he's improved as a route runner. He's been able to display his ability to catch the ball in traffic, all of those things that you want from a big body receiver like that. I want to see him put it together for a full game. I think we'll get an opportunity to see flashes of it throughout the preseason, hopefully. But he's a guy that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to because he could find his way into a serious role with this offense if he continues to perform the way he's had in the preseason so far.
I like it. I truly think that this could be the mid to late round wide receiver breakout, like fully that the Ravens have flirted with for years at that position. So I'm pumped for Tez. Mine, I'm going with Aeneas Peebles. I'm going with Fub.
Nice.
I'm going with Fub. He was my favorite pick of day 3 for the Ravens. I just feel like he has a skill set that the Ravens could use on the interior. Obviously you have Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones there, right? Those are guys who are going to play a lot for you. Peebles is not going to be someone that steps in and is a run stuffer. That's not his forte. He's on the smaller side. That's why he fell in the draft, despite some of the metrics and some of the things that he does well, which is rushing the passer. And if you can rush the passer, particularly from the interior, it's a good thing. He had 11.5 sacks in 5 years in college. So it's like the production isn't like sky high, but then you look at some of his win rates. He had a 17.8 pass rush win rate. That's second among all D linemen in the draft class last season or this upcoming year. I mean, look, he's in conversations with guys like, for example, Bradley Ballhorn here, kind of when people were going through pre-draft stuff with guys. In his database of 388 defensive linemen, the only players with a better than 12% pressure rate and a sub 540 were Derrick Harmon, who was the Steelers' first round pick, TJ Sanders, who went to the Bills in the second round, and Aeneas Peebles, and one other guy too. But that's good company to be in. So I think for me, Bub is a guy that I think was going to make the stamp. He has shown flashes. We've heard some good things about him. Feels like he makes a play or two a day or, play almost every day. I think Fub's going to be that guy. So that's where my stamp is. Sam, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on with me. Before we head out of here, tell people where they can find you and what's working on. I mean, I know where they can find you later tonight. You're going to be back here, but tell people where they can find you otherwise and what you're working on.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Ravens Talk Podcast, talking Ravens football. New show every week. We just had our last show talking about the Ravens and the expectations for the Ravens this season. We'll have another episode out this week. Also, you'll see me later tonight on the Ravens Squad show with my boy Kevin and Q talking all things Ravens, especially following this big preseason game action against the Colts.
Yeah, I'm pumped. We're going to have a great year. This is the preseason. So once we hit the regular season, it's going to be awesome. But hey, it's preseason. We also need the tune-up, right? We also need the tune-up, not just the players. So I will be back here with the watch-along during the game, and then we will head from the watch-along directly into the post-game show. And then we will head from the post-game show into the squad show. So lots of Ravens coverage and content for you. And, of course, you can go and find Sam's links in the description down below. Be sure to follow him, subscribe to his show. He does great work, as you just heard here today on Locked On Ravens. So that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning in. On the way out, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in both video form and audio form. And I will see you back here later tonight on Locked On Ravens.